Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome. I'm Jane and my husband Mike is holding the camera. We're British, early retirees, debt and mortgage free and living a thrifty, frugal and money saving life on a super tight budget here in Brittany in northwest France. And as it's Sunday, we share something of our life with you. And what we're going to share with you this Sunday is some of the discussions that we've been having with people in our Facebook group. And I put the general question out there. Do you have any issues with your budget? Do you have issues with sinking funds? Do you have problems with sticking to a budget? Do you have financial problems that crop up or difficulty with savings? And many of you really generously shared that with us. And that's what this Sunday's video is all about, where we will be looking at your questions and answering them for you. The first discussion I'm going to share with you is a discussion I had with Nicola. And thank you so much, Nicola, for sharing so much with us all here. And hopefully what we're going to talk about right now is going to help others too. And Nicola's is all about getting started. Nicola admitted she has no budget at all. She has nothing written down, nothing organised in any way at all. That she has some debts, that she has no savings at all and no sinking funds. And every time she just about gets straight or back to zero in a way, that something else will come along. The car will need fixing or something in the house will break down. And then they just go back into debt again. And Nicola, your circumstances are not unique to you, and it's got a very common name, and it's called living paycheck to paycheck. And your circumstances are not unusual. But getting back to the point, Nicola, for you about where do you get started? With anything in these circumstances, you need, first of all, two figures. You need to know all the money coming in. And I know you're married and I know you've got a family. So this is where you need to sit down with your husband and you need to look at all the money you've got coming in, how much money you've got coming in, your income, his income. Do you have any universal credit coming in? Do you have any child benefit coming in? And then you need to know all the different dates of those coming in. And the next thing you need to do, Nicola, when you know all of that, is you need to get yourself a notepad or a budget book and a calculator, and you need to write these down, and you need to have the total of that each month. The next thing you need to do, Nicola, is you need to know of all your bills, every single debt that you have, Nicola. When are they paid? And maybe at the moment your circumstances might be that to begin with you might only be able to pay the minimum payment. The next thing you need to know all your utility bills. You obviously need to know all the other bills, things like the children's birthdays and Christmas. Those are bills, Nicola. You also need to know things like when is the car due for tax? When is the car due for service? And all of these are bills. So that is your starting point, Nicola. You need to know all the money coming in and all the money going out. The next thing you need to do when you have all of that is you need to have a very regular discussion between you and your husband about this budget. Because what you're going to have to do now is to stick to it. If the money coming in covers everything that's going out and there is anything spare, you need to put a little bit of money aside each month because you have children and they need saving for school uniform, Christmas and birthdays. But everything else just needs paying off at the moment. So you need to work on something called a snowball method or an avalanche method, and you can look that up, Nicola, of how you are going to pay off these bills. Because at the moment you have got nothing at all, have you, in place. So the first thing you need to do is to get an emergency fund together. The best advice is to get £1,000. It's not enough. It is not enough. But if you have absolutely no savings, that is a massive amount of money to get together. What I want you to do, Nicola, is I want you to go through your house. I want you to find everything you don't wear, you don't need, you don't like, and you're not using. And I want you to sell every single thing you've got. The next thing I want you to do, Nicola, is to sit with your husband when you've worked out your budget and anything that you've got spare that you can put into overpaying more than the minimum payment on your smallest debt if you're going to use the snowballing method. Look it up. This is something that we'll talk about in another video, but you need to start paying down that debt. So start saving for the children so those things don't come adrift. Then start saving into that emergency fund. And this needs to be your every minute's worth of waking focus at the moment. As well with you and your husband, if you can get more work and you can earn more money, you really need to be doing that. I can see from your picture that you're young. I've seen from your wedding photographs you've not long got married, all of those things. It needs to be your absolute focus at the moment. So let's sum this up. Now, all the money coming in, all the money going out. Make sure that you've got your budget written down. Next, make sure you've got a small savings pot for the children. Everything else that you can possibly save, you need to start saving into your emergency fund. When your emergency fund has got £1,000 in it, then all of the money that you were saving into your emergency fund needs to go onto paying one debt. The rest of them keep going with the minimum payment, but one debt. And it's easiest to pick the smallest because you can get rid of that quicker and it's out of the way and it's gone. Maybe that's your overdraft. Maybe you owe some money on a store card, but make sure that you're paying that off. When you've done that, that amount of money snowballs over and rolls over, including the minimum payment, onto the next step up. Good luck, Nicola. You can always contact me on the Facebook page. You can always leave me a message here. And whatever happens, Nicola, I'm right behind you. The next question comes from Sarah, and Sarah asks, should I pay off my debts first or should I contribute, or Sarah says, keep contributing to my emergency fund first? Sarah, I am an unashamed, massive fan of Dave Ramsey's method. I used it myself and it's got me where I am today. And the method I followed, that Mike and I followed, is we got our £1,000 emergency fund first, which would cover things like a car repair that you can top up. It would cover things like a boiler repair. It doesn't cover everything and it's not advisable. And once you've got that £1,000 in place, or I would actually say in the current economic climate, £1,000 to £2,000, dollars or euros. After that, then go completely head first into paying off debts. So make sure you know all of your debts, and for all of them except for one, pay the minimum payment, and then throw every single penny you've got, every bit of overtime you've got, every time you sell something, every time that you get £10 from your granny for your birthday, throw it at that one debt until that one is gone. And then you roll that amount over onto the next debt, and you just keep going until those debts are gone. And whilst you're doing that, Sarah, I would also say to you, the most important thing to do when that is happening is to stop spending. I love Dave Ramsey's advice is you shouldn't be in a restaurant unless you're working in it. You shouldn't be eating, you shouldn't see a takeaway unless you are delivering it. He calls it beans and rice, doesn't he? Basically what he means from that is basically eat as affordably as you possibly can and cook at home until your debts are gone. So once, Sarah, all of your debts have gone, then you need to keep working on that emergency fund so you have 3 to 6 months living expenses. We're at the stage now where we have a fully funded emergency fund of 12 months living expenses put away. And it is a considerable amount of money in today's economy. But we're getting older, something could happen to either of us. It's more important. But in your circumstances, Sarah, if you have 1,000 to 2,000 in your emergency fund, to sum this up, stop topping that up. Don't make it to your 3 to 6 months until your debts have gone. So we've gone from Sarah and now we go to Sarah. Sarah, you shared with me that you find budgeting really stressful. You find the maths of it really stressful. You find the spending issues of emotional spending really difficult for you. That, you're worried about shortages and therefore you buy too much. And Sarah, I need to share with you that, this is not uncommon. How you feel about this is not uncommon. There are many people who have real issues with numeracy, and they really struggle with numbers. So for all of you out there doing that and struggling with that, take a pen and paper approach to this, if that works for you. Sarah, you may be an app person. You might want to use a budgeting app to track this. But all of this is about one word, and it's about consistency. And if you find something difficult, you need to get yourself into a system where you do something for a very small amount of time every day. And that might mean you get your budgeting book out. And in your budgeting book, you might have a load of paper clips on the side of it when you've kept your receipts. So every time you go to the store, that you keep your receipts. Now, there's a real trick around scarcity, and it is to evaluate what you have. If you think to yourself, I haven't got enough clothes, take time to sort out the clothes you've got. Stock check it. How many sets of underwear have I got? How many t-shirts have I got? How many pairs of trousers or jeans or night clothes have I got? And when you actually evaluate that, if you have enough, you can relax over that. Another part of that is stock checking your food on a regular basis. What have I got in the cupboards? What have I got in the freezer? What have I got in the fridge? And also the other things you buy from the supermarket. How much dog food or cat food have I got? How much laundry soap have I got? How much conditioner have I got? How many toiletries have I got? How many loo rolls are in the house? And then when you evaluate that and you look at that and you organise it and you're sorted about that, you can start to relax a bit. And the other part about the budgeting is when you get to see that every single day, you're doing two things. You're adding up or you're taking away, and you're keeping that figure in check. If you have a phone, get your banking app on your phone so it's there in front of you. The other part of this is you're working backwards and forwards through your numbers. And that's all you're doing. You're adding up, you're taking away. Money comes in, money goes out, you are keeping a check of it. But here's the biggest hint that I can take on emotional spending, is find other things that make you happy. We all know the benefits of getting out as early as we can in the day and getting some daylight and going for a walk. Get in touch with friends, go for a coffee and a sit down. Meet up with friends after work for a coffee if those are the people that you associate with. But find other ways, because there's a huge thing about money. It's only a tiny amount maths, and it's a massive amount of emotion. And ask yourself each day is, how am I feeling? How am I coping today? How am I coping today? And have some system in place, Sarah, where you check your budget and you check your money. My best advice to everyone is to do it on paper. Get yourself onto Amazon and just put in the search bar budget book, and you'll find one that will suit your budget. You can start them at any time throughout the year, because if you start it in July and go to June the next, it's fine. You can start it at any time, but find a system that works for you. And those budgeting meetings are really important with you. If you live with yourself, you've only got yourself to answer to. But if it's with your family, it is something that you need to all do together. The next chat came in from Sally, and thank you very much for sharing this, Sally, because again, Sally, what you shared with us is really common. Sally says she makes a shopping list, she takes herself to the supermarket, and then because of health issues, she's too tired to cook it, and the budget goes astray. Maybe you're ordering in food, or maybe you're getting a takeaway or something, Sally, but the budget's going astray, isn't it? And that is not uncommon. And what I want people to realise when it comes to food is just getting a meal on the table. And therefore, if we're tired, if we're busy, some of you out there are working 2 jobs, you have to be realistic about what you can actually do. And I want you to go away and research and look for things, or have a discussion with your family about things that people will eat that are really easy. Fish fingers, oven chips and baked beans is a meal. It's not perfect, but nobody's going to starve. A baked potato, a can of tuna and some mayonnaise in there is a meal. Opening a bag of salad and grilling a piece of meat with that and having a baked potato or some oven chips is a meal. So go away and do some research for yourself on meals in minutes. And you don't have to cook from scratch. You do not have to get a piece of fish, cut it up, drench it in flour and egg, then breadcrumbs, and make your own breaded fish. Buy it. Sometimes it's just as cheap to do that. If you know you are resorting to ordering pizza, keep some frozen pizzas in the freezer and just take those out and cook those if you are too tired. Also remember to yourself things like tins. Have things like tins of soup. A tin of soup and a toastie, which we would call a toasted cheese sandwich or a cheese and onion sandwich. That's a meal. Just cut yourself some slack, Sally. Remember, you're not well. Plan for things that are very, very easy to cook. And also, if you're unwell or you're busy, is to capitalise on when you're all right. And when you're all right and you think to yourself, well, I'm feeling brilliant today. I think I'm going to make a spaghetti bolognese for the entire family. Remember, this time next week, you might be exhausted and feeling unwell. So when you've got that pot open and you're making spaghetti bolognese for that night, make another one. Make twice as much and freeze some in an old ice cream tub or a tub and pop it in the freezer, because you are going to have times. I do this all the time. I do not want to cook every day. I really don't. Even if I have a menu plan up there and ready, sometimes I just don't feel like it. And I will take that spaghetti sauce out the freezer. I would take the mushroom soup out the freezer. So remember, food is food. It doesn't have to be cooked from scratch. It's okay to get some help from it. It's okay to open a bag of oven chips, especially in your case, Sally, if you're not very well. The next came as a question, and it came from Teresa, or Teresa, depending on how you pronounce your name. And Teresa's question was, how do you start sinking funds? Let's start on what is a sinking fund. Your sinking funds are all those little savings pots you need to have throughout the year. And we have them for our income tax, for our property tax. We have them for our car servicing, for gifts, for home and DIY, and for our pets, to name but a few. And that's the first thing you need to do, Teresa, is to think to yourself, what do I actually need to save for throughout the year? You may be employed, not self-employed, so your tax may be deducted every single month. You may pay everything of all of your bills and all of your insurances on direct debit payments. So then you need to think to yourself, well, what do I need to pay for? Well, the car will need a service, the car needs an MOT, all of those things, Teresa. So make first of all your list of things that you need sinking pots for. You need one for Christmas, you need one for holidays and breaks, you need one obviously for birthdays. So those are just your starting points. And then, Teresa, you need to decide of how much you need to put in each of those sinking funds. For example, we decide to put aside €600 a year for gifts. And then we need to break that down into the amount of obviously €50 a month that we need to put aside and save. And then you might think to yourself, well, how do you start with nothing in your sinking funds? And that's what happens to us at the beginning of every year. Those sinking funds have topped up, we've paid the bill, and then it comes to zero again. But they don't all come to zero, Teresa, all at the same time. So some pots will have nothing in them, and some pots will have more in them. And that's the way it looks. My best advice to get sinking funds going in the first place is in the same way that you would approach debt. Everything you have in your house that you don't need, don't like, don't want, or don't use, sell it. And get that into your sinking fund pot. And it acts like a float, a slush fund. The next thing after that I would do, that we did do, is have as many no-spend days and no-spend months as possible. Somehow, for some people, me included, it's really easy to have a no spend month. It's just it. We pay our bills, we buy the food, we put fuel in the car, we don't spend a penny on anything else. If you've got children, it's really good after the Easter holiday and you've got that long 7-week term to go, that term, other than if the children need anything, we'll spend nothing. We won't buy a takeaway, we won't buy a coffee, I won't buy a nothing, absolutely nothing. And that is the way to get that bit of money in that pot to start with, because then you're obviously going to start adding in the savings each month. And to begin with, it will feel like, oh, we haven't got any money, but you have. It's just tucked away in those savings pots and sinking funds for when you need them. So when something arises, like the car needs a service or the car breaks down, it's not an emergency, it's just a minor inconvenience. If you've watched my videos, you know that I like to be reflective. And when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to money or paying off debts or building up savings, it's easier when we are in storm mode. We're absolutely determined, aren't we? Like, right, they've got a problem here, we're going to fix it. We're going to head first into it and we're going to plough on through it. And it works, doesn't it? We're absolutely at it and we go for it. And it can get quite difficult when you've got rid of your debts and you've built up your savings, and then you can sort of like slip and slide a bit, because that bit's gone from storm mode to the doldrums. And the doldrums is the everyday nuts and bolts of living on a budget, being frugal, being sensible with your money, being thrifty, not buying what you don't need, planning what you're going to spend. And it can become a bit humdrum. I can assure you, it can become a bit humdrum. But even through that, it's remembering the reason why. Times are hard. Inflation is crazy. Rents are rising, mortgage rates are rising. We do not know what's around the corner. We need to be saving and budgeting consistently all the time, just to make it. So, what we need to do is get back into storm mode. Get back into that. Let's have a focus on this and make sure that we are really doing everything that we can possibly do. Are we meal planning? Are we stock checking? Are we planning our spending? Are we fixing things ourselves? Are we making homemade birthday gifts? Are we planning for Christmas in January? All of those things. This is where I'm handing it over to you now. Was there something that you heard today that you could add to? Is there something that I've not raised today and I couldn't answer all of your questions today? And if I didn't, I will go back to the Facebook group and I will answer your question there. So I cannot do that for all of you. But thank you to everybody who submitted your questions. Thank you to everybody who hits the like button. And it's really important that you hit the like button because it helps to grow the channel. Thank you to everyone who leaves a comment. We read every one of them. And we will see you very soon. Bye for now.